Hi, and welcome to Myositis Support and Understanding. Today's discussion will highlight one woman's story of her myositis diagnosis and progression, challenges and barriers, and the impact pulmonary rehab had on her symptoms, exercise tolerance, and quality of life. I am so excited to welcome Felicia Moore, a mother of two and grandmother of two, who is living with JO1 positive antisynthetase syndrome with polymyositis and interstitial lung disease. And joining from ECU Health is Kim Smith, a registered clinical exercise physiologist with the American College of Sports Medicine. She holds a master's degree in exercise physiology with a concentration in biomechanics. Kim is also a certified professional yoga therapist since 2011 and has worked in cardiopulmonary rehab for 20 years, the last 18 of which have been at ECU Health in Eastern North Carolina. So let's get started. Welcome, Kim, and welcome, Felicia. Thank you for joining today for this important discussion.
We'd like to start today by letting Felicia talk a little bit about her history and onset and symptoms. So we'll begin there.
I started with coughing in October of 2018. And I will wake up some mornings with, most mornings with joint pain or swelling in my fingers, my wrists, my elbows, and my shoulders. That's whatever. Tenderness, very sensitive. It was hard for me to move. My hands would be swollen and everything. And I coughed for like 3 months to December. And I went to the doctor 2 or 3 times, and she kept giving me cough medicines and the little clear Tesla pills, and they didn't work. And I told her it didn't work. So finally, a friend of mine asked me to ask her to do a chest X-ray. And so January 1st, she gave me a call and said I had pneumonia of 2019. And she gave me medicine for that, and that didn't work. I was still coughing. I was still having the swelling in the joints and stuff. And I noticed that I was getting real short-winded doing, just walking really. And so 2 weeks later, she called and she suggested that I go to the ER and let them do antibiotics intravenously. And I was like, only way I'm going if you, call them and let them know that they need to go ahead on and admit me or go ahead on and do it. I'm not going to sit around for 5 or 6 hours. So she called and they said they wouldn't do it, so I didn't go. So probably 3 or 4 weeks later, my cousin made me go to the ER and try to figure out what's going on, because all I was doing was laying around. I would get off work at 3. I'll be in the bed by 4. I wasn't sleepy, but I just didn't have the energy to do anything else. So that's all I did. And she said, this is not like you. It's basketball season. I'm supposed to be at a basketball game or something right down the road from my alma mater, but I wasn't doing anything. And so that night, they ran all kind of tests and everything. My daughter came in from Greensboro. My son was there. My sister was there because I was trying to figure out what's going on. And he asked me, after they ran all the tests, he said he couldn't find anything. And he asked me, he said, do you feel comfortable going home? And I'm like, no. He said, do you feel safe going home? I'm like, I don't want to go home the same way I came. And I believe that's the only reason that they kept me that night. And they did, they put me in the observation unit when I found out. And they ran some more tests, did some more blood work. And the next day they came in and diagnosed me with polymyositis. And they did an EMG, I guess, to confirm it. And the rheumatologist walked in and looked at it, and he said that's exactly what it was. So they started me on 60 milligrams of prednisone right then. And it started clearing up, but I still had to cough. And so that was in February of 2019. In March of 2019, I saw a pulmonologist, and he gave me an inhaler, steroid inhaler, and that didn't seem to help with the coughing, because he was like, just use that. It didn't seem to help. I was still coughing, and think I was supposed to see him again in June or July, but he moved and they put me with someone else and they canceled that appointment. Ended up not seeing a pulmonologist until October. And that day when I went on October 11th, I'll never forget it, 2019, I had looked at my file and my chart and I saw ILD, but no one had said anything to me about it. So to this day, when I went to the hospital for pneumonia, I feel like I had ILD then, but they just said it was pneumonia. But anyway, October 11th, 2019, I had a doctor's appointment with a pulmonologist. And she was telling me about it. I asked her about interstitial lung disease. And she was like, yes, ma'am, you have it. And I was like, okay, so that's where the short one is coming from. She was like, yes. And I was like, well, okay, I need to know I need a note for work because they're asking me what I can do and what I can't do. Because they kind of like, wanted to know because I couldn't do my job like I used to do it. And so she said, just point blank, oh, you're not going back to work. You need to file for short-term disability that day. And I was devastated. I broke out, started crying, and luckily I had someone with me that day, so it kind of helped. But the doctor didn't. She said that and left the room. Left it. So that's basically how my story started. 2 weeks later, I guess she and my rheumatologist kind of connected on doing a Rituxan treatment. So I started a first Rituxan treatment, then 2 weeks later I had a second one. And I was still coughing. But when I went back in April, my rheumatologist said it wasn't a need because the Rituxan treatment is every 6 months. And evidently the medicine they put me on was helping, the prednisone with the Rituxan treatment. So when I went in April, he said was a need for another treatment. So basically I was still basically the same. The Rituxan treatment and the antibiotic he gave me to keep from getting an infection.
Preventive.
Yes. Were working and it kept me stable. But I still had a cough. No one could tell me I was still coughing. And so I stopped seeing that pulmonologist, started seeing another one because I didn't like her because of the way she handled that situation that particular day. And my third pulmonologist was the one that suggested the pulmonary rehab to me. That was the first time I had heard of it. And I didn't know what it consisted of. So that's when she suggested, but then COVID came. And so when COVID came, it kind of pushed everything back. And they said we're taking in appointments. So it was 2 years later, I finally got into the pulmonary rehab program.
Right.
And within a month, I felt changes. My coughing went away. Like I was telling one of my friends, I was riding down the road singing, and I couldn't sing before. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm singing. And I'm like, oh my God. And I just started praising God and just letting it out, boo-hoo, crying, slings out everywhere. I was like, oh my God, I can sing. And so that's why I encourage anyone that can get into a program to please get into a program because it changed my life. I really did. I stopped the coughing and I'm able to have this conversation without coughing. And before I could not have a conversation without coughing.
Yeah, when you started.
Yes.
When did supplemental oxygen use begin?
October the 30th, if I'm not mistaken. It was right after my appointment with a pulmonologist in 2019.
So the one where they told you weren't going back to work.
Yeah, that one.
And between those two things, how did that make you feel?
Terrible. I was devastated because I could no longer work. Then I'm walking around with oxygen, and I didn't want to go anywhere. I mean, I literally didn't want to see me like that. So, that really bothered me being on the oxygen because there's nothing that I expected in my life. I've never been on any medication before getting diagnosed with polymyositis. I wasn't on medication. I've never smoked. I never drank. And it's just, I'm like, you ask yourself why you, and that's what I did. It's just I was just in denial. Just wasn't accepting the fact that that was my new normal.
What were the emotional some of the emotional challenges that presented for you, and how did you kind of go manage that? Because I know that's a hard thing.
Yeah. It was hard because I couldn't work. I couldn't do my normal duties like around the house. I wasn't able to do anything that I would normally do. I would like go in the grocery store. I didn't want to go to the grocery store because I didn't want anyone to see me with the oxygen on because people weren't used to seeing me like that. And then the stares and, people asking me, well, why you on that? And I just didn't go out, and it was devastating. It's still, kind of bad sometimes when you get around people that haven't seen you in a while. So, um, it's hard. It was hard. It's just like a grieving process to me. It's like I lost something that I never thought that I would lose. So
Right. So you've talked about some of the physical and emotional challenges. You've talked about some of the aspects that have kept you from being more active, I would say. And you've also talked a little bit already about people's perception of you and how that impacted you. Have you had anyone make negative comments about your supplemental oxygen use?
Not too negative. It's that the first thing they say is, "Why are you on that?" That's the way they say it. And I want to say I'm on it because I need it. I'm not on it because I want to be on it. I'm on it because I need it. But nothing real negative. They just don't say anything. That's the part that really bothers me too. Mm-hmm. They just look and they stare and they don't ask questions. I would rather you ask me a question, right, to find out what's going on than to just sit there and assume something else.
Yes, right. So when we talked about this a little bit before, some things came out when we talked about barriers and challenges. Variable energy was one of the things that you talked about. You said that it kind of good days, bad days. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Sometimes you can wake up and be feeling, pretty good, like you can do this and you can do that. But once you start, it's like I have to sit down, take a breath, like take a few minutes off. I don't know if this is a part of the disease, but my back, it's like I can't stand for long periods of time, and I can't do a lot. Even when I was going to the grocery store, I could walk a few minutes, but I always took a cart because I had to lean over the cart because it hurts my back so bad. But it's like normal housework. It's like some days you could get up not feeling good, and your energy will come in later on. It's just back and forth, back and forth. You never know. Can't really plan to do anything because you don't know how you're going to feel from one to the next.
Right. Brain fog was another thing that actually surprised me that you brought up, particularly because of the parallels with COVID, honestly. Mm-hmm. Because that's actually one of the long haul COVID symptoms. So tell us a little bit more about brain fog.
Well, I experienced brain fog, and I had COVID since I've been diagnosed. I had COVID in 2020, and my doctors had told me that if I got COVID, it would probably take me out of here. So I was scared. I am not gonna tell you I wasn't. I was terrified, and I prayed and I prayed, and I was like, Lord, please, help me through this. I had my first 2 shots, and I didn't have any real bad symptoms. My first symptom was diarrhea, but I didn't know that at the time that was a symptom of COVID. So that started on Wednesday, and Friday I had it, and I was like, I'm going to take a home test. So I took a home test, and it was positive. But that was after the diarrhea. I checked my oxygen levels with my oximeter. I was checking my heart rate. I kept a check on all of that, and didn't have a fever either. So all of my symptoms basically the symptoms I had was the diarrhea. That was it. And I praise the Lord for every day for that.
Right. Now, the brain fog, did that come before or after COVID? Or
No, I had it before.
it was
COVID.
before?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm sorry. I got
No, it's
sidetracked.
okay. They're both important. It's both important.
Yeah. But now I had brain fog before COVID. It's like you'll start telling something. Like I'm talking to you, that's why I had to make notes. I'm talking to you and I'll forget my train of thought. It just goes somewhere else. And that's been before COVID. So
I think that's one of the, I hate to say good things that's come out of COVID, but there's more understanding now because more people are experiencing this brain fog that can really be debilitating, So thank you for sharing that.
Agreed.
And frustrating because you're trying to get a point across and you just totally forget it. But
right.
you have the thought there, but starting it and finishing it, you don't finish it at the same time.
Right. Right. And then rapid change in energy was also something that I felt like was kind of profound. And you mentioned it just now, how you can't plan because you don't really know, even though you may feel good right now, you don't know if a couple of hours from now, if you will still feel good.
Exactly.
So that rapid change in energy, I think, can be so debilitating.
Yeah.
And I think isolating.
Yeah.
When I often use a broke down car as an example in rehab of how people feel when they have health issues that are so limiting. And if your car breaks down on the side of the road, the next time you want to go somewhere, you're going to hesitate.
Yeah.
And you're going to be like, well, I'm not sure this is a good idea because I don't know if my car is going to get me there. And that's the only way I can tell people how it feels, and help them understand that apprehension, that they're going through. And one of the important things to me about pulmonary rehab, and we're going to talk more about this later, is that it helps you trust your car again.
Yeah.
Because we're going to help you see and build endurance and stuff and help you see that, yes, I can trust my car again. But we'll circle back to that in a little bit. Let's talk more about rehab. Your pulmonologist, your third pulmonologist,
Yes.
was the first person to mention pulmonary rehab. And you already said you really weren't sure what to expect. But let's talk more about your initial reaction and your initial expectations.
Okay. Walking in, do an initial assessment on me, when you did initial assessment on me, checking my vitals and gave me a 6-minute walk test. And I think that the walk test kind of gives you an idea of where I need to start at or where I need to be at, if I'm not mistaken.
That is correct.
And you check your weight, vitals, oxygen levels, and everything. And the next time I came in, we come in and we have a questionnaire that we fill out when we first get here. You put your name on it, your weight, your birthday. You have questions up there about how you feeling today. And if you're using a mobility device, you ask that question. And if there's anything going on that you need to know about, and I make sure that you let them know if there's anything going on with you, because they won't know unless you tell them. That's right. And they can limit what you do that day if you let them know. So please make sure you let them know. That way you won't be pushing yourself past your limits and you already know you have something else going on with yourself. So, and that was good, because I know one time I came in, I had did the bands the day before, and my arm was bothering, my shoulder was bothering, and I put it on the paper, and she's like, we won't do that today. So
exactly,
so looking at all this exercise equipment, I wasn't sure. I'm like, this is exercise, and how is this going to help me in pulmonary rehab? But I am a believer now that it works.
Felicia, could you talk a little bit about your hesitancy at first, when you first heard about this pulmonary rehab, and how you felt about, going and those types of things.
Well, I looked it up and I was like, when I looked it up, it wasn't giving me details like it being an exercise. It was just like rehab. And I'm like, okay, so this is a whole lot of exercise equipment. This is just exercises. So this, just like a, what you call a brain fog.
Ours looks like a gym.
Yeah, it looks like a gym.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I don't see how this is gonna help, but I'm gonna give it a shot. And I basically did not believe that exercising would help me with my cough. And I'm a witness. You can witness it. Jared can witness. Kim. I'm having this conversation. I have not coughed once during this conversation, and I could not have a 2-minute conversation before I came to pulmonary rehab without coughing. I mean, it's within a month of exercising. My cough was gone within a month. So,
Yeah, I can definitely testify. I know that you're allowing me to share this, but in our support groups, when Felicia started joining, and she just, you talked about the isolation, Kim, right? So she's not able to be a part of the support because she wasn't able to talk because of the cough. And then we did see the progress, and all of a sudden there she is, and she's up on the stage talking, and it was amazing. And I've been witness to some of her beautiful singing now too. So
That's
awesome.
wonderful. Let's talk a little bit about fears. I think people underestimate the power of fear.
Yeah. Well, coming in, I'm like, I don't have the energy to do anything, so how am I have the energy to do the exercise? So that was a fear of mine. Am I going to be able to do this? And the other fear was I didn't want you guys to push me too hard.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to like make it appear that I didn't want to do it because I did. But when someone's telling you need to do this and you don't do it, they may look at it as if she's not even trying. And I didn't want that to be, what you guys thought about me, because that wasn't the case. And so that was a fear of mine. But you guys listen, if I couldn't do it. But then the more I started doing it, the more I wanted to come, the more I wanted to do it. And I would do it on my days off also. I would push myself sometimes, even if I didn't even feel like it. I'm like, but it's kind of holding me accountable. You guys held me accountable. Like I came here 3 times a week, but on my days off, I felt kind of like obligated to do it.
Good.
And so I did. And that was my motivation. You guys helping me get to that point, because I didn't think I could be at that point.
Right. Well, but you were starting to trust your car.
Yeah, starting to trust my car.
Trust, like here you're kicking the tires and, checking the oil and, making sure everything's running right. And we're checking and we're like, yeah, everything's running right. You're doing good. This looks great, So then you have the confidence to go home and like, I can do this.
Yeah.
I feel good. I know how to stop when I don't.
Yeah.
I know what signs and symptoms to look for.
Yeah.
And I'm doing good. What about fear of shortness of breath?
Oh yeah. I felt like if I, did too much, am I going to get my breath? And I don't want to be struggling to try to get my breath. And, people in here were looking and stuff like that. Then I didn't want to start, coughing.
Yeah. Especially in COVID.
Right. Yeah. Start coughing and people looking at you like, oh, my, like that. So that was a fear too. So
yeah.
I've learned to keep cough drops around just in case.
Right. Yeah. What about fear of running out of supplemental oxygen?
Oh yeah, that's all the time, because my machine I'm on a portable, and it only lasts for 4 hours.
Which is a portable oxygen concentrator.
Right.
So it makes its oxygen and it requires a battery And so either you need to make sure it's fully charged, for example, before
Yes.
you come, or you need to charge it in the car on
Yeah.
your way here to be sure you have it topped off, or have an extra battery, which I hear insurance doesn't really pay for.
No.
So that would be a big out-of-pocket cost.
Yeah.
So even tank versus portable concentrator, there are a lot of things to consider
Yeah.
and worries, I would say, and
Right.
fears.
Right, because at first I thought they were going to bring me the tanks, but they didn't, which I was glad because I knew that I would be more isolated if I had to pull the tanks.
Right.
Because I didn't want, that. But I'm glad I had the portable, and it's hard. It's hard to get used to doing something you're not used to doing, and you're used to just getting up and go, and then you having to get your oxygen equipment to go with you to be able to go. It's a big difference. It's a big difference.
Yeah, a lot to get used to.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the types of things you did in your rehab, your exercises.
Yeah, I did the new step machine. You set up like a sit down bicycle.
It's a seated stair climber.
Seated stair climber.
Mm-hmm.
I did that for at least 20 minutes each time I came. And
although you built up to that.
Yeah, I built up to that. I didn't start at 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And then it has different levels too, like 1 through 9. And I think I got up to 4 maybe,
For resistance.
Yeah, for the resistance. And it was okay. And then I would do the cycle.
Yeah, a recumbent bike or a bicycle.
Right, I did that. One of them that has a fan on it was a little bit harder.
That's an Airdyne.
Yes.
That is very hard.
That's a little bit harder, but I tried it.
Yeah, we saved that one towards the end.
Yes, that was on the end. But it was okay. I felt like I actually did a real workout, on that one. Mm-hmm. But it does take a lot out of you, though.
Yeah, but it works your breathing muscles really nicely. And helps you be able to carry something and still be able to breathe, which can be a big challenge.
Right. And I want to say, doing the exercises, they would come over and check your vitals to make sure you're okay. And, they're not elevated that you need to stop. They will always come over and do that. So that was a good thing about being here, too. So.
Mm-hmm. What about, I'm recalling that you did a little bit of walking.
Yeah, I would walk. I would try to walk every day because I don't like walking on the treadmill, just walking in place. So I would walk the track around the equipment probably like 10, 12 times. We had a counter that we could count our laps on. Yeah. And, they kept a record of that. And at the end, when we got a report card, it will tell you where you started at and where you finished at. But I can't remember what mine was.
Yeah, that's right. You were going to look for it. Yeah.
I couldn't find it.
It was a lot.
Yeah, it was.
Like I can't even remember.
Yeah.
I know when our track is 300 feet long, which is about the length of a football field. Mm-hmm. So it's actually pretty long. So 9 laps is a half a mile. So that meant when you finished, you were doing about 3/4 of a mile at that point, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Or at least 2/3, we'll say. And that was in addition to 20 minutes on a seated piece of equipment. And then what else were you doing?
We did the bands.
Yes, so strength training.
Strength training bands.
Upper body particularly.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And the weights, the hand weights.
Yep, light hand weights.
Yeah.
Both of which help improve shortness of breath. They work the breathing muscles as well as the arms and help, improve your ability to do things like fix your hair and, dress and bathe and towel dry and all those great things that we take for granted that tend to exhaust people, I would say.
Because that's one of the things that I couldn't do before I got diagnosed, because I used to do my own hair and I can't do it now. I can't keep my arms up that long, so it's helped. It's gotten better since I have had a rehab. It's gotten better, but it still probably takes me like 2 days to do my hair.
Yeah. And speaking of dressing and bathing, one of the things when we spoke about this earlier, one of the things that we many times see is people don't use their supplemental oxygen when they're in the shower.
Right.
And that's actually a really big deal. Did you do that from the beginning, or did you learn that the hard way?
I learned the hard way. No one told me, they didn't never tell me I could use my oxygen in the shower because I'm thinking I can't.
Right.
And so I was taking a shower one night and I was struggling to get my breath and I felt myself passing out. Because like my head started hurting and I normally take mine goes into the bathroom with me, hang it on the door so it could be there if I need it when I get ready to get out.
Yeah.
But you know, it's like while I'm in there, I'm holding my breath or I'm breathing through my nose, trying to rush to get through the shower without having to get my oxygen. So that particular day, I was like, I didn't have it in the bathroom with me. And my son happened to be there that day, and I hollered, try to get enough breath to tell him, I need my oxygen, I need my oxygen. And when I tell you, if I had been there by myself, I would have been, I'm like, oh my God, this could have been totally different. This came out another different way. So I'm just so glad he was there and he brought it to me and I was able to, get stuff right. So, oh my God, I won't do that anymore. I haven't done it anymore. So
I bet. And it's one of the, I think, simplest and most profound things that can impact a person's quality of life. And I think many times it's overlooked as a recommendation, and so when you brought it up last time we talked, I was like, "Ooh, we got to make sure we talk about that. That's so important." But use the supplemental oxygen with any activity, in every activity. It's a tool. It's a medicine, and it needs to be used liberally.
Sometimes you just get so tired of pulling it,
I bet.
So sometimes, but I know that I need to do it, and I've gotten in the habit of making sure that I have it with me at all times.
Good. Let's see, how long did you participate in rehab?
I started in January through March, so 3 months, 12 weeks, but I was 3 times a week. And then I was told some people do 2 times a week because I think that was a question she asked. Do you want to come twice a week or 3 times a week? So I was anxious, so I did 3 times a week. Yeah, and it was good. It had me something I look forward to doing. It had me, I can't say like a job, but it was something I knew I needed to do or I had to get up and do, and that kind of like made me get up and do it. Because I had to come to the office. You couldn't come to me. I had to come. And it gave me something to look forward to, to do. So that was good.
Yeah. And you already said it took about a month for you to see noticeable improvement to the point where you were like, wow, this is really working. Really working. Yeah. And when you completed the program, how did you feel?
I was sad because, like I said, I was being held accountable for something. That's the way I looked at it. And I found out my sister and my son were trying to figure out something I could do after I finished the program. They didn't tell me about it then, but I heard them talking. I'm like, oh, they're talking about me because they saw my improvement in everything. And so they was trying to find a gym somewhere near that I could, go out. But I ended up just trying to do something at the house. So, and I was send them, once I got out of the program, I couldn't load my information up to the app.
Oh, that's right.
Right. So I would send them when I walk with my
to give someone else that accountability.
Yeah.
Oh, great idea. Yeah. So you had built-in fitness buddies.
Yes. Yeah.
Basically.
Yep.
Nice.
Yep.
That's a great idea. And tell us, you already said you could sing, you could carry on a conversation. tell us maybe other things in your life that you were like, wow, this is so much easier. I can do this now. I can do that.
Well, I purchased a bike to ride, but where I stay on like a busy road, so I purchased a bike to ride, and that kind of helped me a little bit afterwards because when I first started riding, my heart rate was up to 142, and that was kind of half I thought for me. And
Right.
after my pulmonary rehab and I was riding, it started to decrease. Even my walking, my heart rate decreased to like 112 maybe.
Ooh, nice.
So I was like, I could tell the difference by looking at my numbers, myself. So I'm like, okay, it worked.
Nice.
So I'm able to walk further. I've almost got a mile on my road. If I was to go to the walking trail, I probably could do maybe 2 miles. I didn't want to push
it. That's wonderful. Now, you also told me last time we talked that before rehab, you struggled to cook for yourself. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And now?
I'm cooking almost every day, but not every day. But I can do it as long as I stay in the kitchen. Like if I start doing something, then I sit down if I need to. But as long as I stay in the kitchen, I'm fine. And I've cooked the whole meal, full-course meal. So I'm looking forward because I haven't cooked Thanksgiving dinner in 2 years. So I'm really looking forward to doing it this time, this year.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
I remember when Felicia was cooking again, and she was talking about it, able to talk about it, because she had that ability now. And it was so exciting. I remember, talking about being able to, I think, clean up the kitchen at one point, and, all of these huge things that she never would have been able to do prior. It's amazing.
Right. Let's just kind of tell them a little tiny bit about the app that we used, and then let's talk about other tools that people can use, since that app was limited to kind of during COVID as a way to bridge the gap between our program and our patients.
I could go in and put in what I did that day.
It was Better Hearts initially.
Yeah.
And then it changed, yeah.
Yeah, and I could put in my heart. I put in my heart rate. I put in my weight. I put in my O2 saturation, and I would put in what I did that day and how far I did, how long I did it, and that was my accountability there because I could do that. And then once they changed the app,
and then we could see it,
and
so we could see what you were doing at home,
and they also give you information on exercises that you could do, and they give you information on lungs, different stuff about your lungs, and it was just so informative. And I wish I could have stayed on the app, but once you get out of the program, they take the app, access to the app from you.
Right.
So I've used the Heart app on my Apple Watch, and that helps. And the fitness app. Because the fitness app, I can do different exercises like the cycling or the walking or the elliptical and stuff like that. And it start a timer and it counts, it calculates it for you. So you really don't have to do anything because the watch takes your heart rate and everything. So the only thing I have to do is on oximeter right now. Right. And so, And
I think the newer Apple Watch will actually measure pulse ox.
Yeah. I saw that today.
That's pretty new though. Yeah. And I don't know how accurate it is, but I would imagine it's probably pretty accurate.
Yeah. So it helps. I have been looking for one, and I was like, that's a big purchase. But my cousin gave me this one actually, so that worked out that I didn't have to purchase one, but it actually helps. And like you was in the shower, it has fall detection too.
You're exactly right.
Yeah. So if I fall, it'll come on and say, are you okay?
Yeah, and you have to swipe it.
Yeah.
And if I
don't, it will call 911.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
which is pretty impressive.
Yes.
You felt like the app improved your accountability. It provided educational information. I would hope that people are seeking out educational information through reliable sources.
Yeah.
This information was centered around the Henry Ford Clinic I think it's called Henry Ford. Anyway, it's in Detroit. And so that's where the information from the app came from. You know, but just make sure you stick with reliable sources like NIH, the myositis awareness and support, you know, Mayo Clinic, Cleveland Clinic. So just make sure you stick with names that are, I would say, reliable.
Reliable.
Yeah. You were able to track your vital signs, which, you know, you learned a lot from. Obviously, you were talking about how you could see your heart rate coming down as you got stronger. You were able to visualize and see the exercise that you were doing and that you were doing more and able to do it longer.
Yeah.
And then you were also able to message our staff with questions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So there are apps out there, fitness apps like MyFitnessPal, but there's many, many, many out there. I couldn't even begin to go into a list. But I think that people need to find what they think is important to them and then seek it out in those apps and look at the reviews and, you know, see how many people have used that app before. And then there are devices like the Apple Watch, the Fitbit. I think Google has a similar product that, you know, would potentially be helpful. But even steps can be easy to count with an inexpensive pedometer or your phone if it were kept on you.
Right.
So wearable devices aren't necessarily required. If you have a smartphone that'll count your steps, that can easily just be kept in your pocket.
Right.
Talk a little bit more about pulmonary rehab and just kind of make sure we've touched on everything. You know, it basically exists to help people improve their quality of life, improve their exercise tolerance, and learn more about their disease process. Many people think they confuse, I think I would like to say, disease progression with weak muscles, because diseases that cause shortness of breath make people do less. And when they do less, they have kind of a downward spiral of weakness that they assume is disease progression, when I would say 80% of the time it's weak muscles. And that's where I think pulmonary rehab is so beneficial, because it helps people see the difference between disease progression and just deconditioning. And I think that it can provide hope. I think that that's something we haven't touched on today that we touched on when we spoke before. Disease processes that include significant shortness of breath can rob you of your hope.
Yeah.
And
I was going to say that when my doctor suggested pulmonary rehab, and it was like 2 years before I got into the program, my thought process was like, well, could I have been better before now if I had gotten into the program earlier? You know what I'm saying? So that was kind of scary that, you know, maybe I'm too late. You know, maybe it was too late for me to improve, you know, because of the long, from the time she suggested it to the time I actually got into the program.
right.
So, yeah.
And, you know, particularly with this, but with any of the lung diseases, we cannot fix the lungs, but we can make the muscles so much stronger that the lung deficiency is less impactful. So it makes less of a difference because your muscles are at their optimal or at their best strength and endurance. And yes, there is a lot of fear and a lot of hopelessness. And I think that pulmonary rehab can be just a little glimmer of hope that will help people in so many ways.
Yeah.
We're ready for you to talk about hope and give them your final thoughts.
But initially being diagnosed with the diseases that I have, antisynthetase syndrome with polymyositis and interstitial lung disease. When you Google it, it says prognosis is 3 to 5 years. So that just scared me to death because I have 2 grandchildren, 2 boys. One's 5 and one's 11, and I can't do what I want to do with them because of me having to pull this oxygen. But I try to do, and I can do more now that I've had pulmonary rehab. But joining the support groups that I have, MSU, the clubhouse group that we have, Get Moving, and listening to others, because at first I didn't know anyone, I didn't know anything about it, and not knowing anyone else that had anything that I was currently going through. And so listening to others that have been here 20 years dealing with it, and it just gives me hope that, maybe, it's not 5 years. I know only God knows how long I'll be here, but it's just, I have hope now, and because I have progressed a little bit, and my disease is kind of stable from what I've been told. It's basically about the same as it was when I first got diagnosed. So that's my hope, that maybe I can be here in 35 years. I'm on my 3rd year now, so yeah. I don't know what else to say, but I'm hopeful. I'm very hopeful now.
I think I have a few things I'd like to point out. I think you showed immense determination. I think that you listened. I think that you listened to your body, that you also listened to others that were trying to help you. And I think that they say attitude is everything. And I think that you did so well because of your attitude. Well, it was a pleasure chatting with you. I hope that this information is helpful to other people. And I thank the Myositis Support, Awareness and Support Foundation and ECU Health for letting us have this chat today.
Yes, thank you, guys.
Yeah, we appreciate it.